everyone, and welcome to another animated look back. Hoodwinked is an interesting movie for me to review. On first glance, people might look at it and say, why are you reviewing this movie? I mean, there's nothing special, nothing spectacular about it that stands out, nothing horrible about it that's so bad you just have to review it. So why this movie? But this movie is important for me to review for a number of reasons that I'll get into later in the review. It was written and directed by three guys, Corey Edwards, Todd Edwards, and Tony Leach. And it was put together by Blue Yonder Films, which to my knowledge has only put out 3 films. This movie, its sequel, and Escape from Planet Earth. So basically, Blue Yonder Films makes Blue Sky Studios look like Pixar. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So what is the basic story? Well, it's Red Riding Hood, and I don't care who you are. Almost everybody on the planet knows the story of Red Riding Hood. But this is different, because this movie tells us the real Red Riding Hood story. No, not that one! Hoodwinked basically tells the Red Riding Hood story. Red walks into her grandmother's house only to find a wolf dressed up as her grandmother in her bed. We get the whole, oh, what big ears you have and what big paws you have, or whatnot. The grandmother bursts out of the closet all tied up, and a woodsman breaks through the window, looks like he's about to attack the wolf. Everyone is yelling, and that's where the basic story stops. But then before you know it, we get the police on the scene, and we get this investigator called Mr. Flippers, who starts interviewing each and every person and asks them their side of the story. So as we hear more and more of their side of the story, we get to see the picture more clearly.
Slow down, Chief. We've got 4 suspects, and that means 4 stories. And if you get people talking long enough, someone will spill the beans.
Beans?
Look, can I just make a quick phone call?
I'll tell you what happened.
And as we hear each of the characters' point of view, we realize that there's much more going on than meets the eye, as there is also a bandit involved that is stealing the recipes from all the woodland critters. Our characters of the movie are, of course, Red, played by Anne Hathaway, Patrick Warburton as the wolf, Granny, played by Glenn Close, the woodsman, played by Jim Belushi, and Andy Dick as the bunny Boingo. And the first thing I want to say about this movie is that I think the voice acting is actually pretty good. It's pretty good. We get Anne Hathaway as Red, and while I won't say she's anything spectacular, she's more the straight man to all of these other extreme personalities, and she does an okay job with it.
They call me Red because of this red hood I wear.
What about when you're not wearing it?
I usually wear it.
Glenn Close does basically a typical granny voice, even though this isn't supposed to be a typical granny, but oh well, it works, I guess.
I wish I had a video camera.
Jim Belushi doesn't really do anything amazing with the woodsman, but I think he gives the character a simplistic charm that a lesser voice actor wouldn't have been able to pull off. And I'm just going to say, I loved Patrick Warburton's wolf. I mean, as the movie continues, we find out that the wolf wasn't actually trying to eat Red, but the wolf was investigating who was stealing all of these recipes, and he considered Red a suspect. So that's why he was following her and disguising himself to try to see if he could get to the bottom of who's stealing these recipes.
You see, Twitchy, you get lemons, you make lemonade. And then that lemonade goes bitter and ferments and turns to pig swell. Never trust a bunny with directions, Twitchy.
Sure thing, boss. Never trust a bunny.
Well, the bright side is, at least I finally dried off. Why couldn't I write movie reviews?
And you know what? He brings a lot of humorous charm to this movie, and a real laid-back, sarcastic tone to this wolf, which really comes across as being pretty funny. He just has a lot of humorous charm in this character, and I think he hits it with just the right amount of sarcasm and wit. The filmmakers say that he took the role and he made it his own, and you can really see that he brought his own dimension to this character, which made him really funny.
Red Riding Hood! We'll never catch her. Taxi! Whoa, that was her. We passed her. Right here's fine.
Okay, spoiler alert for anyone who cares, but I want to talk about who really stole the show. It was Andy Dick as the bunny Boingo.
Red! Oh, hey, Red. What are you... You've spoiled the surprise.
You're the bandit.
Surprise!
In the end, you find out that none of the four are really the bandit, and in fact that it is the bunny Boingo who is in each of the stories just in the background. And you know what, it actually is kind of a pretty good twist that this cute little bunny was the villain the whole time. Well, it's kind of a good twist if you're like, I don't know, 5. You might be able to see it coming if you're any older.
Maybe someday somebody will open up a great big goodie shop and we can all work for that little guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, real subtle there, guys. Wouldn't never have guessed. But you can tell that Andy Dick is having such a great time with this role of this power-hungry, obsessed little rabbit. I would see a movie just based on this Boingo rabbit, evil rabbit character. I think he's hilarious.
Dolph, tie up the brat. Lisa, hold the book. Vincent, get the truck. And Keith, darn it, change your name, please. That's not scary, and I'm embarrassed to say it. Boris, try that. Keith, you know? Oh, watch out for Keith.
And I don't even think the filmmakers can really take full credit for this. I think this is all on Andy Dick, because they said on Wikipedia, and I quote, "What we had written was kind of stock, to be honest, but Andy Dick, well, where he was supposed to laugh, he'd be crying. Where he was supposed to yell, he'd be laughing. He just mixed it up." But sadly, this evil bunny doesn't really get to become evil till the final act, and I wish we had more of that. But just for kicks, I will play for you the only thing that he shares with the wolf that I find super funny for some reason.
I understand. Are you thinking about putting in a laser?
I don't know. Do you think I should?
Well, it's standard equipment for a cave lair. I'm not saying you're gonna zap someone with it today. But you gotta think about the future. Those things have gotta be calibrated. You gonna do that yourself?
See, scenes like that make some of the other voice acting bearable. Because, well, some of it isn't that bad, it's just adequate, like the bear, the frog, the squirrel, the Velasquez bird, and so on. Some of them are just so bad and aggravating, it is hard to stomach.
All right. We were hired by the bandit.
Wow, nice Arnold impression. Nobody could have done that except for, oh, I don't know, everyone?
I got horns that open bottles, and I got horns that hold my keys. I got horns.
Oh my goodness, just shut up!
What's happening? What up, my homies? You ready to get spanked?
Yeah, so what's the dizzle, Grizzle? You ready to floss that hill, player?
Full shizzle.
Is this racist? I think this is racist. Either way, it still sucks.
What do we read? Far away places?
Okay, are you the director's kid? The producer's nephew? I mean, you must be related to somebody on this set, because there's no way you got through casting from just your voice talent alone. Also, I was looking over your cast list, and I noticed that you had Tara Strong in your movie, and she only voiced a villain sidekick? You had one of the greatest voice actresses of all time, and you gave her a character that doesn't even have one line of dialogue? That, my friends, is a waste of talent. That's like asking Da Vinci to paint your bathroom. There's something wrong with that. But, oh well, some of the voice acting's good, some of it's bad. What are you gonna do? But how's the animation? The animation is horrible! Horrible! It is some of the worst animation that I've ever seen on a worldwide animated release. I mean, look at Red. Her eyes are dead, her skin looks like plastic, and she looks so blocky and stiff. A lot of the characters look like this. their eyes are dead and their face is blank, and it's so hard to ever read any emotions of these characters. And it's really distracting, and it leaves the faces looking like they don't have any emotion at all.
And kablam! Why don't you go home and cry to your granny?
Oh, is she crying? I couldn't tell. Her face looked just like it always does throughout the entire movie! And if they don't look emotionless, they are creepy. Really creepy.
Mommy, I want a schnitzel stick. Oh, the schnitzel
Everything in this movie looks unfinished. It looks like this is the rough draft that you do to see where everything is going to be standing, and then you professionally render it later. But no, this is the finished product. And some of the scenes, like this one with the gangster sheep, I cannot believe I just said that. But anyway, it looks like it's not even finished. And this animation lacks weight. Everything looks like it's light as a feather. I mean, there's a scene where Red falls out of a cable car and lands on the ground, and it feels like she just fell off a stepladder. Some might say, dude, you're being a little bit too hard on these guys. I mean, this is back when computer animation was just starting out. I mean, even Pixar had trouble with human animations when they first started. That's why they stuck to things like toys and bugs. Okay, you know what? That's fair enough. Because, you know, human animation is hard, and it was hard back then. And let's see, when this movie came out in 2005, and you know Pixar must have been struggling with computer animation, because in 2004 they released... Oh. Well, maybe comparing them to Pixar is unfair. I mean, Pixar set the bar really high. It's nearly impossible for any animation company to come up to that, much less a starting out one. So let's compare them to DreamWorks. DreamWorks didn't get human animation down till Shrek, and Shrek didn't come out until, wow, 4 years earlier, huh? Well, maybe if you're comparing them to DreamWorks is too high standards. I mean, DreamWorks has set the bar pretty high too. And this was their first feature. This was these guys' first movie. So can you name one animation company that was doing 3D animation that made their first feature with good human animations before this movie? Okay, I think I made my point. The animation sucks. And that's a sad thing, because some of these jokes that they were trying to tell could have worked if they had better pacing with their animation and better facial expressions.
No, the world is too dangerous for me.
Fancy! Danger! Turn into the skin! I'm okay. I'll walk it off.
I mean, if you sped up the pacing of that and gave Red a more expressive face, like, oh, oops, sorry, you know, that could have worked. That could have been funny. But all I have is silence, because the pacing and comedic timing and the animation is so bad. Speaking of the jokes in the film, they are everywhere. They're all throughout, and you know what? Some of them are quite funny. I think it is mostly the pure zaniness and weirdness of these characters, like the talking bunny or the fast-talking squirrel, that really make me laugh at some of these jokes. But the problem is, since they're so random and so out there, sometimes the jokes are really funny, and sometimes they burn and die.
For a reporter, you sure have a strange way of doing your job.
What can I say? I was raised by wolves.
Good for you? Was it a bad childhood? What's the joke? And this movie is clearly a product of its time. I will give a 1-up in the comments to everyone who is able to tell me what this scene is a parody of.
I noticed you have 3 G's tattooed on the back of your neck. That's appropriate, since there are 3 strikes against you.
And trust me, if you don't know, a little kid in the audience isn't gonna know either. And also, the story is all over the place, especially with the character motivations for our main character, Red. In the beginning, she wants to leave the woods and go on adventures and fly.
If I had wings like you, I'd fly all the way past that mountain. And the next one, and the next one. But I can't. I'm just a kid.
I'm just a woodpecker.
And I'm Javert.
And then she's wrapped up in the whole crime drama, and then she feels sad that her grandmother lied to her. And by the way, where the heck are her parents? They're never even brought up in the film once. It's just her and her grandmother, and she lives on her own down in the woods. They never even say that her parents are around, or if she has any, or what. Basically, she doesn't have a character arc. There is no character development in this film. There is just her doing stuff. It's basically filler that is posing as character development, but doesn't actually develop any character. Speaking of filler, the big plot to steal all the recipes by the rabbit is pretty weak. I mean, the rabbit boingo seems to be stealing all of the goodie recipes from all the goodie shops, and they're closing down because of it, which, if you made that type of thing for a living, wouldn't you have memorized the recipe by now? But anyway, I guess goodies are this town's only currency? Well, I would think that if it wasn't for the fact that the wolf gave the gangster sheep... Oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? Anyway, the wolf gave this gangster sheep money, so they obviously have money, but why would everyone in these woods make a living off of making recipes? It'd be like going into a town where there was only fast food restaurants and nothing else. But that seems to be the only plan. Oh, I'm stealing your recipes. Oh no, my cookbook. Look, I know the movie's not taking itself too seriously, so I don't need to take it as seriously as I would a different animated film. But the fact remains that the villain stealing recipes is still a weak premise. I find it humorous that on Wikipedia I read that in an interview one of the creators said that they wanted to distance themselves from Shrek because this is a Shrek wannabe in a nutshell. Let's start with the pop songs.
The horror.
Here's a story I hope you'll like. It's the one about the girl riding on her bike. It's a tired tale, but it's rude.
These songs are so bad in so many ways. They are forgettable to hear, annoying to listen to, pretentious, stock, pointless songs that would be what Todd in the Shadows would be forever forced to review if he was in hell. The only one that stands out a little bit is Red is Blue.
Because red is blue doesn't make much sense, but red is blue.
I don't know if it was because the rest of the songs were so horrible that this one was so adequate that I actually enjoyed it, but it was okay. I thought it was fine. The only problem is, it's a scene with Red moping around doing nothing while the song's going on. You just basically put the movie on hold, and you're not developing any characters. Red's sad. Okay, you don't need a song to say that. I always say songs are there to help further the story, and to get in the heads of our characters, to see how they see themselves and how others see them. But if you're going to do the Shrek way, at least make them upbeat and fun to listen to. Here at best, they are forgettable annoyances. Here at worst, they make you want to shut the TV off!
You can take the critter out of the tree, but you can't.
Shut up! My gosh! Shut up! The second Shrek comparison is fast-talking side characters. Sure, in this movie, with Twitchy, they made him go full Alvin the Chipmunks type fast-talking, but it's still very similar with the fast-talking comic relief.
You got the camera.
I got the 220X and a photograph with the autofocus. Oh, look at it. Come with a 500mm lens. You want to go color or black and white?
Doesn't matter.
I brought a flash.
You put that away. It's covert, no flash.
Undercover, got it. Yeah, nobody sees, nobody knows. Click, click.
You ever thought about decaffeinated coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
Next, there's a character that you think is, innocent and sweet, but can actually kick some butt because she knows karate! Not to mention all the pop culture references, yada yada yada. Basically, this movie is trying so hard to be Shrek, and it just can't. So, now all that being said, you might ask, why am I even reviewing Hoodwinked in the first place? Is it just for me to review a bad animated movie so I can fill my quota of good to bad? No. It is very interesting as a movie because it is actually one of the first independent 3D animated movies. That's right, they had no aid of any distributor. That means they had to finance it themselves. The entire budget of this movie is only $8 million, which, if you know anything about movies, is actually not that much. I took a quick look online and it says the amount to make an average quality 3D animated film these days is $50 million. And you can really tell that the creators were pushed to their limits. I read in an interview where Todd Edwards says, "It becomes an equation. I have 10 things that I would like to change in this shot, and I have the time and budget to do 3. Pick those 3, and then let's move on." And that was hard to do. It was actually really interesting to read interviews on this, because filmmakers usually, even when they make a bad movie, won't really admit that there's stuff wrong with it. You know, filmmakers don't like to do that, but these guys were openly admitting that there was problems with their film and that they really knew that there was stuff wrong with it. Like how Corey Edwards says, "I'll be real honest, there are many shots that I wince at when I see them because it's not my standard of excellence. I know they could be better, but there comes a time at the end of the day where we just had to give up on some things. So to hear critics and people on the internet like ranting about it, we all want to yell back and go, we know it's bad, but this is what we could do." There are some people who think if you can't do something perfectly, then you shouldn't do it at all. I'm not one of those people. I think you should always try to do the best you can, even if your qualities isn't as the high standards as you would want it to be. So what does that mean? Should I cut these guys a break because they didn't have the time or the budget to make the animated film that they wanted to? Well, yes and no. Yes, it is something to take into consideration that this studio did not have the time or the money to compete with something like Pixar or DreamWorks. However, when you release something on the world stage, the same world stage that Pixar and DreamWorks are releasing their movies in, you have walked into the ballpark and therefore are open to the criticisms that come with it. This movie was originally going to be a straight-to-DVD release, and if it was, well, A, I wouldn't have been reviewing it on this show, but if I was, I wouldn't have been so hard on it, because straight-to-DVD releases don't have the time or budget that regular movies do. But by releasing it worldwide, it actually tells the world that you are on the same level as other animated companies. It is like a high school football player. If he is playing on his hometown, on his home turf, at the high school football level, no one is going to complain that he is not at the level of an NFL player. But if he steps onto the field of the NFL players, then he has opened himself to criticism in comparison to better players than he is. Same with this movie. It's put itself on the high stage, the worldwide release. That means that it's making a statement that is just as good as the other animated movies that have come out. And therefore, we can now criticize and compare it to those other movies because it was released on the same world stage. So in the end, would I say Hoodwinked is a bad movie? Yes. Definitely yes. The sad thing is that I could see if this movie was under a company that had, a whole lot of time and dedication and budget behind it, that they could have smoothed over the kinks. They could have gotten rid of the jokes that didn't work and put more stuff in it that did and have more creativity flowing into it. The animation could have been more fluid and therefore some of the jokes would have been funnier. They could have gotten rid of some of this not talented voice acting and could have replaced it with something that was halfway decent. I really think that a couple of more drafts of this script and a couple of tweaks to the animation, really, this movie could have been a really good animated movie. But as it is, it's not. Are there parts I like about it? Oh, heck yeah, I wish that Bunny and the Wolf had a spin-off show. But as it stands, the pacing is all over the place, the character's animation is blocky and stiff, and the characters look really dead. Some of the voice acting is just so horrendous and bad that it makes my ears bleed. And that's the stuff that brings it down. This is one of those cases that while there are some good things about it, the cons definitely outweigh the pros. Filmmakers, I'm sorry that you were limited on your resources, but that doesn't change the fact that your animation is horrible, some of your voice actors are just as bad, and that you're desperately trying to be like Shrek. So in the end, I'm giving Hoodwinked a 3 out of 10. It is a bad movie, not really worth watching. However, I will say that I respect it more than I do other movies that I have given this rating. Other movies that I've given this rating, they're not even trying, and they're just in there to just make a quick buck. You can tell that these guys were trying, and there was creativity flowing, it just wasn't in the right setting, it wasn't in the right place, and therefore the movie suffers because of it, and which brings it down to a 3 out of 10. In another world, this could have been a great animated movie, but in this one, not so much. So thanks for watching my animated look back, everybody. I'm Lazerdude99, and make sure to join me on my next animated look back when I review The Iron Giant. See you around.
So, what do you think?
Bring it, honey.
I always did like happy endings.